the Kennedy family, still can lure you in by its dark history. The start would come with Joe Kennedy getting into politics early on in his life, marrying the daughter of the mayor of Boston, and then becoming ambassador to England. Joe would make his fortune on Wall Street. Then he would start buying up real estate up and down the East Coast. In 1945, Joe would make an estate that would turn into a gold mine that still produces much today. It's heavily rumored that Joe moved liquor around in the Prohibition era, working with mobsters to move it. There would be 9 children in all for the state of the Kennedy family tree of power and wealth. But the main attention would be on the 4 boys that would be born. The 4 boys in the Kennedy family would be Joseph Patrick Kennedy, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, our 35th president, Robert Francis Kennedy, and last, the youngest, Ted Kennedy. 4 brothers with unusual history and 3 out of the 4 tragic endings. The first brother and the oldest, Joseph Kennedy, his father would groom him for politics, trying to make him a president figure, but sadly, Joseph was drafted and will lose his life in the war, being the first Kennedy to lose their life while serving their country. So now, Joe the father will set his sights on John F. Kennedy, his second son, grooming him to become a politician. John will go to serve his country as well in 1941. Although when John comes home, even at a young age, he will start to attract the attention from the big eyes and the powers that run the wheel of Congress. They know John's from good stock, able to grab people's attention when he speaks. It seems that almost like John can't lose. By 1953, John was in the Senate, making his voice and his face known to everyone around, helping with big bills at the time, and in no doubt, knowing that he's going to make a run for the president's seat. John F. Kennedy, in 1961, will win the election for President of the United States of America. When John comes into office, he becomes a very different looking president and starts to find his main fight. John will not only be dealing with the Cuban Missile Crisis, perhaps nuclear war closer than it's ever been at the time, but also, at home his main topic is civil rights. One could say that John F. Kennedy was one of the first presidents since Abraham Lincoln to push for African American people in the U.S. to have every right a human should have, helping and supporting black leaders in any way he could, meeting them on the regular. Although in 1963, with John pushing for change in the United States, going through a war in Vietnam, fighting to have a man on the moon, just still in the middle of his job as president, at age 46, John F. Kennedy will lose his life, leaving his wife Jackie Kennedy and his 2 children. As John is making his way around Texas, from big city to bigger city, on November 22nd of 1963, John will find himself in Dallas. That morning, driving through the city, next to Jackie, his wife, waving and unprotected from the crowd. Around 12:30 p.m., as the car drives past smaller crowds, in what will soon be called the grassy knoll, John will grab his throat, and for a split second, with blood slipping through John's fingers while he's grabbing his throat, his wife Jackie noticing something's wrong with her husband. Just in a moment, a shot will be fired at John's head, killing him instantly, and from that moment, history will show the rest. And completely not wrapped up, was John shot by one man, or by 2, by the mob, or just by an unknown source? And then, as fate would have it, in 1968, in Los Angeles, California, the 3rd brother, Robert Francis Kennedy, will be assassinated while giving a speech and trying to make his own political campaign. By the time Robert Kennedy is killed, right in front of the public, it seems that people are already talking about the Kennedy curse. Even in 1969, this word is coming up. Now that Robert is gone, there's only one brother left in the family, but this brother would have different elements take place in his life when it comes to luck. The 4th brother of the Kennedys will live out a long life, escaping death early on twice in his life. Ted Kennedy, in 1964, will find himself in a plane crash almost a complete year after the death of his older brother John. Ted will just be suffering a broken back that he will recover from. Ted will escape death just by a hair. 2 people in the little plane will lose their life, and Ted will be pulled out of the wreckage. It seems that the vein of bad luck will try to go for Ted once again. In 1969, Ted will be driving and go off a small bridge. where the car will go nose first into the water, then flip over, and then sink to the bottom. Ted will swim free from the car. Once on the shore, he sees that his passenger is not out and says he tries to swim back down to rescue them, but could not. The person in the car was a woman named Mary, who worked for Ted's older brother, Bobby Kennedy. Mary will drown in the car, not able to escape the pitch blackness of the car submerged in water. It's never really understood to why Ted was not able to save Mary, other than he just simply wasn't able to. So Ted says he just simply starts walking back to the cottage where him and Mary came from, and won't report the incident for 10 hours. When the local public, and the ones that are already not fans of the Kennedys, find out what has happened, Ted will be charged with leaving the scene of an accident, but miraculously, he will be found innocent, and the story will be submerged itself. There's many different stories of what really happened that night, but Ted will live out a long life, and the public will forget, and he lives the rest of his days out in Congress. Ted will die in his home years later as an old man of the only 4 brothers to live out a long life. John F. Kennedy's son, John F. Kennedy Jr., who the world really thought might could have had a chance someday to be a president. The looks, the voice, the public acceptance, just like his father. But in 1999, with lack of sleep, misjudgment, and weather, will crash his plane into the ocean in 1999, bringing death to John himself, his wife, and her sister, making people believe that there truly is a Kennedy curse. It's said to date that the Kennedy wealth runs as deep as $850 million today and continues to grow each year. There's still family that lives and works in politics today that are running their own political race. As for Joe himself, he would have a stroke in 1961, leaving his right side paralyzed and not able to speak well afterwards. On November 18th, 1969, Joe would pass away from old age and other illnesses that plagued his body. He died in his home in Hyannisport on the Kennedy estate. Sadly, Joe would have to see 3 of his sons die, and 2 of them in the public view, for the whole world to see. The Kennedy family could find themselves in the spotlight again, maybe in the future, if we ever see young Joe Kennedy run for the presidency. But things have been quiet now for over 20 years in the family now, and it makes some wonder if we might see the curse come back to claim one more. The Kennedy curse.